Mark's hands trembled as he stared at his phone, the memory of what happened 3 days ago still burning in his mind. How could one accidental moment change everything? He never meant to walk into that hotel room. He never meant to see her that way. And he certainly never expected her reaction, the one that shattered something deep inside him and forced him to question everything he thought he knew about the woman who controlled his livelihood. If you've ever had a moment that completely transformed your relationship with someone in authority, hit that like button. And if you want to hear more stories about life-changing encounters and the unexpected ways people can surprise us, subscribe to the channel now. This story might just change how you see the people in your life. The alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., and Mark Reynolds groaned as he reached over to silence it. The small apartment was quiet except for the soft breathing of his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, who was still asleep in the bedroom down the hall. He had exactly 90 minutes to shower, make breakfast, pack Lily's lunch, wake her up, get her dressed, drop her at Mrs. Hernandez's apartment for before-school care, and make it to work by 7:30. This had been his routine for the past 3 years, ever since Melissa had walked out on them, claiming she wasn't cut out to be a mother. The divorce papers had arrived 2 weeks later, and just like that, Mark became a single father at 32. He worked as an executive assistant at Meridian Financial, a mid-sized investment firm in downtown Chicago. His boss, Victoria Winters, was the firm's chief operating officer, brilliant, demanding, and notoriously difficult to please. Office rumors painted her as cold, calculating, and possibly even heartless. Mark had seen colleagues reduced to tears after meetings with her. But the job paid well, offered good benefits, and most importantly, allowed him the flexibility he needed to care for Lily. That morning had started like any other. Mark dropped Lily off, arrived at the office at 7:25, and had Victoria's preferred coffee, a double espresso with a splash of almond milk, waiting on her desk when she arrived at 8 o'clock sharp. "Good morning, Mark," she said, barely glancing at him as she swept into her office in her usual tailored suit, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. "I need the Henderson portfolio analysis by noon, and reschedule my lunch with Peterson. He's wasting my time with this acquisition proposal." "Already done," Mark replied. "And the quarterly reports you asked for are on your desk, color-coded by department." Victoria paused, finally looking at him. "Efficient as always. That's why you're still here when I've gone through 3 other assistants in 2 years." It wasn't exactly warm praise, but from Victoria, it was practically a hug. The day proceeded normally until Victoria called him into her office at 4:30. "Mark, I need you to attend the Financial Leadership Conference in Detroit this weekend," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "I was supposed to go, but the board wants me in New York for an emergency meeting about the Westlake merger." Mark's heart sank. "This weekend? I have Lily. I can't just." "I understand you have a daughter," Victoria cut in, her voice cool. "But this is important. You'll be representing me and Meridian. The conference materials are in the folder, along with your hotel reservation. The company will cover all expenses, of course, including childcare if you need to bring your daughter." Mark stared at her, surprised by the childcare offer. Thank you. I'll make it work." "Good. The flight leaves Friday at 3 p.m. I've already cleared it with HR for you to leave early." As Mark left her office, he felt the familiar weight of single parenthood pressing down on him. He'd have to call his mother in Indianapolis, see if she could drive up to watch Lily. Or maybe Mrs. Hernandez could help. Either way, he'd make it work. He always did. The Detroit Metropolitan Airport was crowded when Mark arrived Friday afternoon, Lily in tow. His mother had come down with a bad cold, and Mrs. Hernandez was visiting her sister in Mexico. With no other options, Mark had to bring Lily with him. "Is this a work trip, Daddy?" Lily asked, her small hand clutching his as they navigated through the terminal. "Yes, sweetheart. Daddy has to go to some meetings, but we'll have fun too." The hotel has a pool, and I promise we'll go swimming tomorrow evening. Lily's face lit up. Swimming. Can I wear my mermaid swimsuit? Absolutely, Mark smiled, grateful for how easily pleased his daughter could be. The hotel was nicer than anywhere Mark would have stayed on his own budget, a luxury high-rise with a stunning view of the Detroit River. After checking in, they headed up to their room on the 23rd floor. Wow, Daddy! We're so high up. Lily pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. Mark set down their bags and checked the conference schedule. The welcome reception started in an hour. He'd arranged for the hotel's childcare service to watch Lily during the evening events. After getting Lily settled with the childcare staff in the hotel's kids club, Mark changed into a suit and headed to the reception. He felt out of place among the senior executives and financial leaders, but he reminded himself that he was here representing Victoria and Meridian. He needed to make a good impression. The reception was in full swing when Mark arrived. He grabbed a glass of sparkling water and tried to look like he belonged. He was studying the name tags of nearby attendees when he heard a familiar voice. Mark? What are you doing here? He turned to find Victoria Winters standing behind him, elegant in a black cocktail dress, her hair down around her shoulders instead of in its usual severe bun. Mark nearly choked on his water. Ms. Winters? I was told you had to be in New York. Victoria frowned. The board meeting was postponed. I flew in this afternoon. Her eyes narrowed. Didn't you get my email? Mark felt his stomach drop. No, I left the office early to catch the flight. I brought my daughter. Your daughter is here? Victoria looked genuinely surprised. Yes, I couldn't find anyone to watch her on such short notice. Victoria was silent for a moment, then sighed. Well, this is awkward. I suppose we're both representing Meridian now. The rest of the evening was uncomfortable. Mark tried to stay out of Victoria's way, but they kept ending up in the same conversation circles. He noticed something odd, though. Victoria seemed different here, away from the office. She laughed more easily, spoke more warmly to people. Several times, he caught her looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. When the reception ended, Mark hurried to pick up Lily from the kids' club. She was half asleep when he carried her back to their room, her head heavy on his shoulder. Did you have fun, sweetheart? He asked as he helped her into her pajamas. She mumbled sleepily. We made crafts and watched a movie about penguins. Mark tucked her into bed, kissing her forehead. Sleep tight, mermaid. Tomorrow we'll go swimming, just like I promised. As Lily drifted off to sleep, Mark changed out of his suit and sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. He pulled out his phone to check his email and found 3 messages from Victoria, all sent after he'd left the office. The first informed him that she would be attending the conference after all. The second asked him to call her immediately. The third, sent just an hour before he landed in Detroit, told him to enjoy the weekend with his daughter and consider it a paid vacation. Mark groaned, running a hand through his hair. How had he missed these? He should have checked his email before boarding the plane. Now he was stuck in an awkward situation with his boss, who probably thought he was incompetent. He was about to put his phone away when it buzzed with a new text message from Victoria, need to discuss tomorrow's schedule. My room, 2302, 10 minutes. Mark stared at the message. Her room? He glanced at Lily, sound asleep in the bed. He couldn't leave her alone. After a moment's hesitation, he texted back, Lily is asleep. Can't leave her alone. Can we meet in the lobby? The response came quickly, bring the monitor from your room. I can hear if she wakes up. This won't take long. Mark sighed. He didn't feel he could refuse. He found the baby monitor in the bathroom amenities basket, turned it on, and placed the receiver unit next to Lily's bed. Taking the transmitter with him, he headed down the hall to room 2302. He knocked softly on Victoria's door, feeling strangely nervous. After a moment, he heard her call, "It's open." Mark turned the handle and pushed the door open, stepping into the room. "Ms. Winters, I'm sorry about the confusion with the..." He stopped mid-sentence, frozen in shock. Victoria was standing by the bathroom door, wearing only the bottom half of her underwear, a towel in her hands that she'd clearly been using to dry her hair. For a split second that seemed to stretch into eternity, they stared at each other in mutual horror. Victoria's eyes widened, and she quickly covered herself with the towel. "Mark. I thought you were room service." Mark spun around, facing the door, his face burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. You texted me to come to your room, I knocked, you said it was open. Get out." Victoria's voice was sharp with anger and humiliation. Mark didn't need to be told twice. He fumbled with the door handle and practically fell into the hallway, pulling the door shut behind him. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. What had just happened? Had he misunderstood her text? Had she texted the wrong person? He hurried back to his room, checking the baby monitor to make sure Lily was still asleep. She hadn't moved. Mark sat on the edge of the bed, his hands shaking slightly as he looked at his phone again. The text was definitely from Victoria, and it definitely said to come to her room. But maybe she'd meant to send it to someone else? Or maybe she'd expected him to call first when he arrived? Either way, he'd just seen his boss half naked, and she was furious. He was going to lose his job. He was sure of it. Mark barely slept that night, his mind replaying the mortifying scene over and over. By morning, he'd convinced himself that he should just pack up, take Lily, and go home before Victoria could fire him in person. But he couldn't afford to lose this job, not with Lily depending on him, not with their health insurance and the rent and Lily's school tuition. He was still debating what to do when his phone buzzed with another text from Victoria, "Breakfast. Hotel restaurant. 8:30, bring your daughter." Mark stared at the message. Bring Lily? Was Victoria going to fire him in front of his child? That seemed cruel, even for her. But he couldn't refuse. At 8:25, Mark and Lily entered the hotel restaurant. Victoria was already there, seated at a table by the window, fully dressed in casual slacks and a blouse, a far cry from her usual formal office attire. She looked up as they approached, her expression unreadable. "Good morning," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "You must be Lily." "I'm Victoria. I work with your dad." Lily, shy around strangers, pressed against Mark's leg. "Hello," she said quietly. "I heard you're going swimming today," Victoria continued, her tone gentler than Mark had ever heard it. "Do you like to swim?" Lily nodded, warming slightly. "I'm going to wear my mermaid suit." "A mermaid suit? That sounds magical." Victoria smiled, actually smiled, at Lily, then looked up at Mark. "Please, sit down." Mark helped Lily into a chair and sat beside her, his stomach in knots. A waiter appeared with menus, and Victoria ordered coffee for herself and Mark, and orange juice for Lily. "Order whatever you'd like," Victoria told them. "It's on the company card." Lily's eyes widened at the pictures of pancakes and waffles on the children's menu. Mark, however, had no appetite. He ordered plain toast for himself and chocolate chip pancakes for Lily. Once the waiter had gone, Victoria took a deep breath. "About last night." "I'm so sorry," Mark interrupted, keeping his voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. "There was a misunderstanding with the text. I should have called first or..." Victoria held up a hand to stop him. "It was my fault. I sent that text to you when I meant to send it to room service. I was going to order a bottle of wine. Then I got in the shower, and when I heard the knock, I assumed it was the wine being delivered." She looked genuinely embarrassed, an expression Mark had never seen on her face before. I should be the one apologizing to you. Mark was stunned. In 3 years, he'd never heard Victoria Winters apologize to anyone. It's okay. These things happen. Victoria glanced at Lily, who was happily coloring on the children's placemat the waiter had provided. I also owe you an apology for the confusion about the conference. I should have called you directly when plans changed. It's fine, really, Mark said, still trying to process this new, apologetic version of his boss. Victoria studied him for a moment. No, it's not fine. The truth is, Mark, I've been unfair to you in many ways. Their food arrived, interrupting the conversation. Lily dug into her pancakes with enthusiasm, chocolate smearing around her mouth. Victoria watched her with an odd expression, something almost like longing. She's beautiful, Victoria said quietly. How old is she? 7, Mark replied, surprised by Victoria's interest. She'll be 8 in October. And you've been raising her alone for 3 years, you said? Mark nodded, wondering how Victoria knew that detail. Had he mentioned it at the office? That can't be easy, she said, her eyes still on Lily. Especially with a demanding job. We manage, Mark said simply. Lily's worth every sacrifice. Victoria was quiet for a moment, sipping her coffee. Then she said, I had a daughter. Mark nearly choked on his toast. Had? Victoria's face tightened with pain. She would have been about Lily's age now. Emma. She died when she was 2. Leukemia. The revelation hit Mark like a physical blow. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. No one at the office knows, Victoria said. It happened before I joined Meridian. My marriage didn't survive it. David, my ex-husband, he couldn't handle the grief. Or maybe I couldn't. We both changed after Emma died. Mark was speechless. The cold, demanding boss he thought he knew was suddenly a real person with real pain, a mother who had lost her child. I see you with Lily sometimes, when you bring her to the office on those school holidays, Victoria continued. The way you are with her, it's beautiful. And painful to watch, if I'm being honest. Is that why you've been so? Mark trailed off, not wanting to say harsh or difficult. Victoria gave a sad smile. Demanding? Cold? I've heard the office rumors, Mark. I know what people say about me. She shrugged. Maybe they're right. Grief changes you. Success became my shield. If I was the best at my job, if I was indispensable to the company, then I had value. I had a reason to keep going. Mark thought about the past 3 years, how he'd thrown himself into being the best father he could be for Lily after Melissa left. How work had become secondary to that mission, just a means to provide for his daughter. I understand, he said softly. We all cope in different ways. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time. You know, I've always appreciated your work, Mark. You're efficient, thorough, discreet. But I never really saw you until now. I never saw how much you were juggling, how hard you were working to be both mother and father to your daughter. Lily, who had finished her pancakes, tugged on Mark's sleeve. Daddy, can I go look at the fish tank? She pointed to a large aquarium near the restaurant entrance. Stay where I can see you, Mark told her, and she hopped down from her chair and skipped over to the tank. When he turned back to Victoria, she was watching Lily with that same wistful expression. I've been unfair to you, she said again. Expecting you to work late, to be available on weekends, to travel at a moment's notice. I never considered what that meant for you as a single parent. It's the job, Mark said. I knew what I was signing up for. Victoria shook her head. No, it's not just the job. It's me.